Good morning. I am Brett Smith, as Ian pointed out, one of the graduating deacons who is speaking today. I started here in 2002, not knowing this church and not knowing a lot of things about this college. I was a football player, so my Sundays were spent getting ready for JV games or watching film all day long and not coming to church. I was not here for the second semester, which would have made it possible for me to come to the university church. I only had a brief stay at this school for the first time I was here. I came back in 2008 after a long absence from this university. I came to the first service I could over the summer. It will make sense why in a second I did so, and met the associate pastor, Calista Isabel. She was very welcoming to me, and she listened after the service to part of my story, as I like to call it now, at coffee hour, and she remembered what had happened. She came after the accident, which was in early 2003, but she remembered Cynthia Terry, the associate pastor before Calista, talk about it. Cynthia would often talk about the accident that killed 4 young men who all went to Yale. I was in that accident, and I almost followed as a 5th fatality. Luckily, I was only in a coma, but a very bad coma at first. Cynthia Terry baptized me in my coma after she had learned from my parents that I had never been baptized. My family went to church a lot, but because my dad was in the Air Force, we never settled down in church for very long because we did not know how long we would actually stay in that area. I was baptized by the university church, and I have had and will continue to have an immediate connection every time I step foot in it for that reason. It is like my home. That is why I wanted to come back as soon as I could to get more involved with this church in 2008. I came to my first Sunday back here, and I have been hooked ever since. It did not take me long to get more engaged in this church. As soon as I get readmitted in September of 2008, Calista asked me to be one of the student deacons, and I graciously accepted. And I have been a deacon ever since. Now I stand in front of you on the eve of something that seemed so out of reach in 2003. Me walking across the stage to get my Yale degree. I've learned a lot over my time at Yale, and some lessons I learned trying to get back to this great university. And I want to pass some of that knowledge on to you, my extended family, the Yale University Church. First, do not ever give up on anything. When someone tells you that you can't do something and you feel that you can, listen to yourself and do it. You need to look that person in the eye and say to him or her, either in your heart or out loud, "Watch me. I can do anything I set my mind to." In the Bible it says, in Psalms 46, verse 1, "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble." When something seems impossible, just know that God is always right there. You may not see him, but he is leading your path. I am reminded of a poem that is entitled "Footprints" by an unknown author. In the poem, a man has a dream that he is walking on the beach with the Lord, and up above, scenes from his life are flashing before their eyes in the sky. When the last scene came flashing before their eyes, he looked back to see the footprints. He was puzzled by when He was puzzled because when the hardest scenes of his life flashed upon the sky, there was only one set of footprints. He asked the Lord why in his toughest moments the Lord left him. The Lord looked at him and said, I love you, and I would never leave you. When you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. There were many times in my life when I wanted to give up, but I kept pushing forward with Bible verses like Psalms 46 in this poem in the back of my mind to remind me that God is always right there, sometimes carrying you when the way seems too hard. The second lesson that I would like you to know is when one way does not work, find another. I could not find a good Bible verse to quite capture this feeling, so I will draw on my own experience to show you. Many times I would come to a roadblock that seemed insurmountable, and sometimes I still have those times. But take, for example, my feeling in 2003 that I could come right back to Yale, right after the accident. I was unaware at that time of all the damage that had been done to my brain. I had to go back to community college at first, give my brain a chance to heal. Then after a few years, I felt like I was ready to make my return back to the university, or to this university. You have to learn sometimes to retrace your steps, to back up a little bit, and go down a different path. It's like going through a maze in one of those maze books. We've all gone down the wrong way at some point or another in those maze books, but if we turn around knowing that way will not work and find a more suitable path, we will get out of that maze just like you will find a way out of any situation that just seems too hard. The last lesson that I would like to tell you about, I will take right out of the Bible. It is from Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. We do not know why a lot of things in our lives happen, but if we let God do his work and we fight with him, good things are bound to occur. I cannot believe my time at this university is coming to a close. It seems like only yesterday I walked through those doors not knowing what to expect from this church in 2008. I did not know if people would be nice or if they would be sort of mean or really not care. But everyone that I've met here has been so compassionate. They've been warm-hearted and just a general joy to be around. I will miss my time here. Lots of good memories took place within these walls. And I thank you as a congregation for letting me be one of your deacons for the last 4 years. It has been amazing. Thank you.
In the past few weeks, I've seen many lasts. Last classes, last papers, last club dinners, last debates, and this past Friday, my last trip to Ian's house for the annual Liturgical Olympics. This has also been a time to look back at firsts. I first came to worship service at the University Church on a bit of a whim. It was the Sunday of Camp Yale, just after I turned in a disastrous French placement exam. I did not know what the word deacon meant or what made the University Church distinct besides its central location. Much of my faith background consisted of my mother compelling me to go to various Chinese language Baptist churches. And fitting with my history major, I used to sneak out of worship service as a kid, just before the pastor began his sermon, to read about biblical history in the church library. What a difference 44 months makes, now that I am more active in a faith community than I could have imagined when I arrived. And yet then, as now, one thing remains the same. I left that exam looking for relief from my first bit of work stress as an undergraduate, and since then, I find that my religious life has balanced against my focus on academics, careers, and other material pressures. Evening prayer, for instance, has been a time of solace in the middle of the work week, always reminding me that church can be more than just 10:30 to 11:40 on Sunday mornings. And in a world of hierarchies and deadlines, which I admittedly live and breathe in, being among the student deacons and their collective leadership has been refreshing. Church has not just been a way to leave my homework or ladder climbing, so forgive my use of a thesis, but my time in the university church has begun to reveal to me that faith in God and His gifts intrinsically balances and keeps my worldly work, structures, and goal setting in a much larger perspective. At the end of my time at Yale, I've been meditating on my values, how I've changed, what I've learned, and how my faith ties into all of that. I've long practiced delayed gratification and risk aversion, believing that I could achieve my goals before others and control my destiny because I was meticulous and willing to limit myself on fussy things like friendship and smelling the roses. Early in my junior year, I ended up soul-searching about the purpose of my work and my post-college path. Now, my self-doubt was broader than just a particular line of work and study like law. I doubted my approach as a student, and I feared how so much of my life was outside my control. Coming a few months after my baptism here, which was a high point for my spiritual life, I was at a low point as I even grew increasingly inactive among the student deacons. My time of existential confusion is now behind me. It was through the friendship of many in my life, including those here, that I gained the confidence to be where I am today, knowing where I will work, continuing my faith journey, and trying to contribute one last time to this church while I still can. As I reflected during the Lenten journey, I consider knowing where I will be after I graduate one of God's biggest gifts to me. I will always continue to learn, but I hope I understand a little more of the uncertainty of life and God's gifts. I still feel the tug of delayed gratification and over-planning, but I remind myself, as much as I love order and efficiency, it takes more than just that to be a full child of God. Being in the real world over the summer and seeing people live their lives holistically made me more aware of my own mortality. I'm becoming more comfortable with the unpredictability of life, that so much is outside of my control. That life is too short to be set entirely on ambitions is not a cliche if it is true. That may seem odd from someone who is going into an ambition-driven line of work, but I'm not suggesting I'll be any less of a workaholic. I will still work hard, but that will be more for the experience and enjoyment of the gift of working for its own sake than for the ends. More importantly, I will try to be less distraught if insurmountable obstacles stop me short of my goals. My work is only a necessary but insufficient condition for life, and things like family and friends are also essential. Being close to family and friends is not about fulfilling goals. It is about the continuous experience of being human. Knowing my mortality and realizing that work is not everything made me more willing to take risks, from romance to being socially more spontaneous. Work alone cannot sustain the love, loyalty, and friendships here in places like the university church that give it so generously. Now that I try to live more in the present, I see God manifest not just in his big gifts, but in small ones as well. After a hiatus of more than 3 years, I'm finally returning to my old hobby in drawing and painting. And I'll delight in these creative gifts beyond their function as achievements. Additionally, for every sketch of a still life or figure, I now also appreciate God's more momentary manifestations. As I jog up Science Hill in the late afternoon, I see that God is in these little gifts. God is in the breeze rustling the tree branches, and God is in the rays of the sun dripping down on East Rock. There, I see the physical manifestation of Isaiah's words, that it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. And so I see an intersection between the three aspects of my life: work, people, and spirituality. Work and people are of the temporal world, yet they are also gifts of God and ways to come closer to him. This church community is made up of people and has been the foundation of my spiritual life. My work is inextricably bound with cooperating with other people, but careers are also gifts of God. I am still developing my faith. My understanding of God and my mortality remains vague, but I hope to have that faith for the rest of my life. Isaiah 40:23-28, Matthew 6:8, and Psalm 23, passages that I have thought about for a number of terms here, remind me why I should ever worry less and appreciate what God has given me more. Referring to the princes of the world, Isaiah states that scarcely are they planted when he blows upon them and they wither. Isaiah writes, "Lift up your eyes on high and see who created these, and the Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth." If princes, the strongest of humans, are saplings before God, then how can I believe that I can create things without God? Life is uncertain, and only God knows my destiny. Looking at Matthew, I do consider those lilies of the field, how they do not labor and spin, and how they are more resplendent than even King Solomon. Though I fail every day, I try not to worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself, and I must first seek his kingdom. Finally, Psalm 23 reminds me that the Lord is truly my shepherd, just as he has been the shepherd of this church. The green pastures and still waters are among the sublime manifestations of God that I see when I smell those roses. Though my worries are mundane compared to the rest of the world, I know he is with me with his rod and his staff as I walk through the darkest valley. I shall strive to dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. The gifts of God are ultimately his, and I am grateful for all the joy they have given me. I could keel over now and at least partially be at peace, not merely because of a list of accomplishments, but because of the close bonds that I've made with people and because of my faith in the eternal afterlife. So with that, thank you to the University Church, to Ian, to Callista, my fellow deacons, and to everyone who has supported me and encouraged me to better understand my spiritual life and my life in general. For that, I shall be forever grateful, and we miss you all dearly. Thank you.